Welcome to From Manuscript to Ministry, created and produced by Elder William Moore, the podcast where faith meets the written word. Each week, your hosts David and Martha dive into powerful, self-published books by Christian authors who are boldly using their God-given voices to impact the kingdom. Whether you're an aspiring writer, a reader seeking spiritual growth, or a ministry leader in search of authentic resources, this is your space to be inspired, encouraged, and equipped. Let's explore today's featured book and uncover the life-changing message behind the manuscript.
Have you ever found yourself just sitting perfectly still?
Like staring out a window or something.
Yeah, exactly. Or lying awake at 3 a.m, caught in this intense, almost painful tug of war in your own mind.
I think we've all been there.
Right. Because on one side, there is this heavy, undeniable reality of feeling utterly and painfully ordinary.
Oh, absolutely.
You look at your daily routine, your bank account, your perceived limitations, the mistakes you've made, and everything in your environment just screams average.
It just feels so loud sometimes.
It really does. But then, pulling on the exact same rope from the other direction, there is this quiet, persistent, deeply seated feeling in your gut that you are called to something completely extraordinary.
That whisper.
Yes, that whisper that says you aren't meant to just exist, pay your bills, and, fade away into history.
You're meant to make an impact.
Exactly. You are meant to step into a profound calling. And if you have ever felt that tension, if you have ever felt that massive gap between who you are right now and who you suspect you are truly supposed to be, then you are exactly where you need to be today.
We have such a good one for you today.
Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Yeah.
We are getting into something incredibly rich today. We have a fascinating stack of insights on the table.
We really do.
And we are zeroing in on the writings of Elder William Moore. Specifically, we're going to spend our time unpacking his book, From Ordinary to Extraordinary. 33 motivational quotes from Judges chapter 6, verse number 12.
It really is a remarkable piece of work to analyze.
It's so dense.
It is. What Elder Moore has done here is take a single pivotal moment in ancient history, a single verse of scripture, and he has extracted a lifetime's worth of psychological, historical, and spiritual applications from it.
Yeah.
And for our mission today, we're going to focus our analytical lens entirely on one specific gem from this text.
Quote 14.
Quote 14, exactly, which reads, "Embrace your inner warrior and set your doubts aside."
So powerful.
That is our true north for this conversation. The mission of this deep dive is to figure out exactly how Moore constructs this framework to activate a faith-based warrior mindset.
Right. We're going to look at how he proposes we practically overcome life's concrete obstacles.
And how we can systematically silence the inner critic.
Yeah. And how to step fully into whatever calling is in front of us.
I think it's important to set the tone right out of the gate for you, the listener.
Definitely.
We are exploring an unapologetically faith-centered framework today, but we are looking at it as a deeply practical toolkit.
Because Moore isn't just offering up, philosophical platitudes to make you feel warm and fuzzy while you commute.
Right. No.
He makes the case that there are actual actionable mechanics to silencing the inner voice of fear.
Actionable being the key word there.
So let's jump right into the core of Moore's premise. He suggests that inside every single person, yes, including you listening right now, no matter how tired or defeated you might feel, there is a warrior waiting to be awakened.
A dormant force.
A dormant force. But to wake it up, Moore argues we have to deal with the sedative that's keeping it asleep.
And that sedative is doubt.
The text presents this fascinating dichotomy. It says, doubt often silences courage.
That specific phrasing, silences courage, really warrants a close look.
Unpack that a bit.
Well, Moore is describing the mechanics of how doubt actually operates in the human psyche. We often treat doubt as a passive feeling, right?
Yeah, just something that happens to us.
Exactly. We think of it as a natural, almost harmless byproduct of analyzing a situation. We say to ourselves, oh, I'm just being realistic.
Or I'm just exercising caution and weighing the pros and cons.
Right. But Moore's text frames doubt as an active, aggressive agent.
Wow.
It is an active silencer of potential.
Yeah.
If we look at this through a psychological lens, it really mirrors the concept of intrusive thoughts in cognitive behavioral therapy.
Oh, that's an interesting connection.
Right, because you get a brilliant idea, you feel a strong conviction to speak up in a meeting, to start a new business venture, or to mend a broken relationship.
And that is the explosive power of courage welling up.
Yes. But then doubt steps in, acting like a cognitive distortion.
It whispers, "Who do you think you are?
Exactly. You don't have the qualifications. Remember what happened last time?
What if you fail publicly?"
And suddenly, that explosive courage is just muffled. Doubt actively gags your potential.
I really appreciate that you brought up the psychological angle, because reading that section, I couldn't help but think about how I experience this in my own life.
It's universal.
Let's look at the next part of Moore's premise, where he says hesitation delays purpose.
Oh, that one hurts.
It hits so close to home, because we rarely call it hesitation when we're in the middle of it, do we?
Never.
We dress hesitation up in very respectable professional clothes.
Oh, yeah, we call it preparation.
Exactly. We say we're waiting for the perfect time or gathering more data. I will fully admit I have had moments where I was terrified of launching a new project, so instead of taking the scary first step, I spent 3 days color-coding my email inbox.
Or redesigning the logo for the 5th time.
Yes. I told myself I was working, but I was hiding.
You were hesitating.
Moore is pointing out that hesitation isn't just a symptom of internal anxiety. It actively puts a pause button on your life's calling.
That's the tragic part.
When you hesitate because of doubt, you aren't just protecting yourself from potential failure. You are actively depriving the world of the purpose you were meant to fulfill in that exact moment.
That is a brilliant connection, and it ties directly into the biological response of the human nervous system.
Oh, so?
Well, when faced with a perceived threat, even if that threat is just the possibility of social embarrassment or financial risk, we default to fight, flight, or freeze.
Right.
Hesitation is the freeze response.
Wow.
And Moore's theological argument here is that this freeze state delays the divine timeline.
That's heavy.
It is.
Yeah.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of faith that Moore is drawing from, a profound paradigm shift emerges.
Okay, let's hear it.
It's the realization that, according to this framework, faith does not create new strength out of thin air.
Oh, that's huge. Because we often operate under the assumption that we are entirely empty vessels.
Right, and we need to strive, work, or pray to acquire strength from an outside source.
But Moore's text suggests something fundamentally different.
He argues that faith activates the strength God has already placed within believers.
The warrior is already there. It's like a powerful software program on a computer. It's fully installed, sitting right there on the hard drive, but it's dormant.
Yes.
It just needs the right command, which is faith, to boot up and run.
The shift in thinking goes from, I need to go out and acquire more strength, to I need to unlock the strength I already possess.
Let me play devil's advocate for a second on this idea of doubt.
Please do.
If someone is facing a very real, tangible crisis, let's say they are staring down a severe medical diagnosis,
Right.
or they're looking at the very real possibility of bankruptcy, setting doubt aside sounds a little bit like toxic positivity.
I can see how it sounds that way.
How does Moore's framework navigate the difference between ignoring reality and activating this dormant warrior? Because simply telling someone to stop doubting when the math isn't mathing seems dismissive.
That is a critical distinction to make, and it's absolutely essential to understanding the depth of Moore's work.
Yeah.
The text doesn't advocate for delusion. Setting doubt aside doesn't mean you pretend the bank account is full when it's empty.
Or you pretend the medical report is clear when it's not.
Exactly. Acknowledging facts is necessary. But doubt, in the context Moore is using it, is the narrative you attach to those facts.
Off the narrative.
The fact might be, I have very little capital for this business. The doubt is the voice that says, therefore you are a failure, this will never work, and you should just give up now.
I see.
Setting your doubts aside means you stop allowing fear to write the conclusion to your story.
Wow.
It means you look at the stark, difficult facts, and you choose to believe that the latent strength within you, the inner warrior activated by faith, is capable of navigating those facts.
It's a shift from acquisition to activation.
Precisely. You aren't ignoring the mountain. You are activating the gear required to climb it.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. It's not about ignoring the facts. It's about changing the narrator in your head.
Yes, exactly.
So this raises a huge question. If this warrior is already inside us, if this strength is already latent in our spiritual DNA, what does it actually look like when it wakes up in the real world?
It's a great question.
Because it is so easy to talk about warriors in abstract, poetic terms. But what does it look like in practice, especially for someone who feels terrified?
To answer that, Moore points us to the ultimate historical case study.
He takes us directly to the foundational text of his entire book.
Judges chapter 6, verse 12.
Yes, and to fully grasp the weight of this case study, we have to do a deep dive into the historical and geopolitical context of Gideon's situation.
We really do. Moore uses this specific narrative because it is the ultimate example of the reluctant warrior.
Reluctant is putting it mildly.
Truly. At this time in history, the Israelites are living under the devastating oppression of the Midianites.
And we need to understand that the Midianites weren't just a neighboring tribe that occasionally caused political friction.
No, they were a massive threat. They were a nomadic coalition that utilized early domesticated camels to cross vast stretches of the desert.
They would sweep into the region right at harvest time like a swarm of locusts.
The biblical text describes them coming with their livestock and their tents in numbers too great to count.
They would consume or destroy all the crops, take all the sheep, the oxen, and the donkeys, and leave the Israelites with absolutely nothing to survive on.
It was essentially annual systematic economic ruin and state-sponsored starvation.
The psychological terror of that must have been unimaginable. You work all year to grow food for your family, and the moment it's ready, a massive army sweeps in, takes it all, and leaves you to starve.
Brutal.
So where do we find our soon-to-be hero, Gideon, in the middle of this national trauma?
If we are talking about activating an inner warrior, you'd expect to find him on a high hill rallying a militia.
Or secretly forging weapons in a cave.
But no.
He is hiding. He is at the bottom of a wine press, threshing wheat.
And for anyone who doesn't know ancient agricultural practices, this is a wildly absurd visual.
It truly is. Can you break that down for us?
Sure. Threshing wheat is a process that requires wind. You take the harvested grain to a high, exposed threshing floor, usually on a hill,
Right.
and you toss it up in the air with a pitchfork so the wind can blow the lighter, useless chaff away while the heavier, edible grain falls to the ground.
So you need elevation and exposure.
Exactly. A wine press, on the other hand, is a pit carved into solid rock designed to keep grape juice contained.
It is literally a hole in the ground.
Gideon is down in a hole, trying to separate wheat from chaff without any wind, completely covered in dust, working in claustrophobic, incredibly inefficient conditions.
Why? Because he is terrified.
He is prioritizing concealment over efficiency.
He is operating out of pure, unadulterated survival mode.
Terrified that if he goes up on the hill, the Midianites will see him and take the meager amount of food he has managed to scrape together.
I think we have all had our wine press moments.
Oh, absolutely.
Like I mentioned earlier, hiding in my email inbox instead of launching the project.
Or maybe for someone listening, your wine press is staying in a soul-crushing job because you are terrified of the interview process.
Or staying quiet when someone makes a toxic comment because you are terrified of conflict.
We confine ourselves to these small, dusty, inefficient spaces because it feels safer than being exposed.
So true. So Gideon is literally in a hole, crippled by fear, sweating, jumping at every sound.
And right there, in the middle of his intense fear and uncertainty, the angel of the Lord appears to him.
And what does the angel say in Judges chapter 6, verse 12?
He doesn't say, "Hey, you coward in the hole, what are you doing?"
No, he says, "The Lord is with you, you mighty man of valor."
The juxtaposition there is absolutely staggering, and it forms the crux of Elder Moore's entire thesis.
We really have to sit with the profound significance of Gideon being addressed as a mighty man of valor while he was still deeply afraid.
Covered in dust and hiding in a pit.
The divine declaration spoken over his life was in direct, almost comical contradiction to his current physical and emotional reality.
Let's look at the etymology of valor. It comes from the Latin valere, meaning to be strong, to be of worth.
It implies great courage in the face of danger.
Exactly. God addresses Gideon not by his present circumstance, a frightened farmer paralyzed by doubt, but by his divine potential and his ultimate calling.
Moore poses a powerful question through this text. What does it mean that God sees the warrior before the warrior sees themselves?
That is such a disruptive thought.
If we apply Moore's framework to you, the listener, it means that your identity, your core worth, and your capacity for courage is not determined by your current struggles.
It's not determined by your track record of failures, your bank account balance, or the depth of the metaphorical wine press you are currently hiding in.
Your identity is established by the Creator who placed that dormant potential inside of you.
You might be looking at your life thinking, Once I get enough money, once I get that master's degree, once I conquer my anxiety, then I'll be a warrior.
Then I'll step out and do what I'm called to do.
But Moore argues the text is showing us the exact opposite.
Precisely. The order of operations is reversed.
If we extrapolate on this concept, Moore is uncovering a vital psychological and spiritual truth about the nature of courage itself.
Which is,
Warriors of faith are not born confident. They become courageous through action.
there is a massive misconception that courage is the absence of fear.
But courage is not the absence of fear. It is the assessment that something else is more important than the fear.
In Gideon's case, it was the voice and the call of God that had to become more important than the threat of the Midianites.
Moore emphasizes that confidence is the result of obedience, not the prerequisite for it.
Let's pause on that because that is a massive insight. Confidence is the result of obedience, not the prerequisite for it.
It really flips the script.
We always get that backward. We wait around for the feeling of confidence to arrive. It's like a package in the mail before we were willing to do the hard thing.
Exactly. But you don't get the confidence to do the hard thing until you actually start doing the hard thing.
Right.
If you read the rest of the narrative in Judges, Gideon doesn't instantly transform into a fearless superhero the moment the angel speaks to him.
He still asks for signs.
He still moves cautiously. He still struggles with doubt.
He had to step out of the wine press. He had to tear down the local idols in his town. And he had to blow the trumpet to gather an army before the deep, sustaining confidence of a general finally arrived.
Activating the warrior mindset, according to Moore, requires you to move forward while the doubt is still trying to talk to you.
You don't wait for the doubt to leave the room. You simply stop taking its advice.
You simply stop taking its advice. That reframes, quote, 14 so beautifully.
When Moore says, set your doubts aside, he isn't suggesting you perform some Jedi mind trick where you achieve perfect inner zen and never feel worried again.
No, not at all.
He means you take that doubt, you acknowledge its presence, and you mentally set it to the side of your desk.
You look at it and say, I see you there. I acknowledge the risk. But you are not driving the car today.
But here's where I want to push us deeper into Moore's text. A burst of inspiration from hearing about Gideon is great.
But tomorrow morning comes.
Exactly. The alarm goes off.
Hmm.
The modern-day Midianites, the unpaid bills, the harsh critics, the overwhelming emails are still out there.
They don't magically disappear.
How do we sustain this?
Thankfully, Moore doesn't just leave us with a great historical narrative. He provides a very specific, actionable, biblical toolkit to equip the inner warrior for the daily grind.
You are absolutely right. Inspiration is fleeting. Preparation is sustaining.
Moore transitions from the historical example into a systematic exploration of supporting scriptures.
These aren't just random quotes. They form the foundational architecture of the warrior's mindset.
Let's break down this practical toolkit. The first tool addresses the very nature of the fear that tries to paralyze us in the winepress,
Moore directs us to 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7.
which states, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind."
This verse is foundational to Moore's argument because it immediately categorizes paralyzing fear.
It tells us explicitly where irrational, purpose-delaying fear does not come from.
It does not come from God, which means if you subscribe to this theological framework, that crippling fear is an alien entity to your true spiritual nature.
But look at what the text says we have been given instead.
Power, love, and a sound mind.
I really want to camp out on that last phrase. A sound mind.
Because when you are gripped by doubt, when hesitation is actively delaying your purpose, what does your mind actually feel like?
It does not feel sound.
It feels like absolute chaos. It feels like you have 40 browser tabs open at the same time, and half of them are playing loud, terrifying videos.
What if the market crashes? What if they laugh at me?
What if I look foolish? What if I let my family down?
A mind caught in that spiral is useless in a battle.
That is a very accurate description of cognitive overload.
Which is exactly what doubt relies on to keep you paralyzed.
A sound mind in the original Greek sophronismos carries the connotation of discipline, self-control, and the ability to think reasonably and clearly in the face of panic.
Moore uses this scripture to argue that emotional regulation and mental clarity are the ultimate weapons against the chaos of doubt.
Having a sound mind means you have the trained ability to observe a fearful thought without instantly adopting it as reality.
You evaluate it objectively and you say, no, that is a cognitive distortion. That is not the truth of my calling.
It is the mental discipline to remember who called you and what you are equipped to do, even when the adrenaline is pumping.
So we have the sound mind to cut through the noise. But let me push back on the next tool Moore gives us, because this one always trips me up.
Let's hear it.
He points us to Joshua chapter 1, verse 9.
Which says, "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go."
This is arguably one of the most famous verses about courage, but here is my struggle with it, and maybe the listeners thinking the same thing.
Okay.
It is framed as a command. Be strong and courageous.
Right?
How do you command an emotion? If I am legitimately terrified of a medical outcome or a massive financial loss, telling me I command you to be courageous feels about as effective as commanding me to suddenly feel 7 feet tall.
That's a fair point.
How does Moore reconcile commanding an action when the emotion of fear is so overpowering?
That is the perfect question to ask, because it strikes at the core misunderstanding of what biblical courage is.
Okay, unpack that.
Moore's framework argues that God is not commanding a spontaneous emotion. You are correct. You cannot mandate a feeling.
Right.
What is being commanded in Joshua chapter 1, verse 9 is a posture and an action.
Courage in this text isn't an emotion that magically washes over you while you wait passively in the wine press.
Courage is a choice you must actively execute.
When the text commands, do not be afraid, it is not saying, do not experience the biological sensation of elevated heart rate and cortisol.
It is saying, do not let that sensation dictate your next step.
Wow. Okay, that completely changes how I read that.
So it's about separating the feeling of fear from the action of courage.
Exactly. When you wake up and the imposter syndrome hits hard, Joshua chapter 1, verse 9 is the tool you pull out to say, I am commanded to take a posture of strength today.
I am choosing the behavior of courage, completely regardless of my current emotional weather.
You are deciding to boot up the warrior mindset.
It emphasizes that courage is an action-oriented faith.
It is doing it scared.
Doing it scared, I love that.
And maintaining that posture, doing it scared day after day, requires active defense.
Which brings us to the third critical component of Moore's toolkit.
He directs us to Ephesians chapter 6, verses 10 through 11.
Which instructs believers, finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes.
This passage introduces the absolute necessity of methodical preparation.
To understand the gravity of this metaphor, we have to look at the historical context of Roman and Middle Eastern armor, which the original author of Ephesians was observing.
Armor in the ancient world was incredibly heavy, complex, and cumbersome.
A soldier did not wake up, stretch, and magically find himself fully equipped for battle.
Putting on the armor was a deliberate, daily, methodical process.
You had to strap on the sandals, secure the belt, fit the heavy breastplate, and take up the shield. It required intent.
I get so energized by this visual because it perfectly illustrates that the warrior mindset isn't passive.
You don't just roll out of bed in your pajamas, wander onto a battlefield, and hope for the best.
When Ephesians chapter 6, verses 10 through 11 says, put on the whole armor of God, Moore is implying that if you don't actively, consciously put it on every single morning, you are walking into your day completely exposed.
You are walking into your workplace, your creative endeavors, or your parenting challenges, completely vulnerable to the arrows of doubt.
The whispers that you aren't enough will pierce right through you if you haven't done the work to equip yourself.
What is particularly fascinating about Moore's analysis of this passage is his focus on the phrase, take your stand.
Notice the defensive nature of the instruction.
The armor is not primarily given so you can run around aggressively attacking things. It is given so you can hold your ground when things attack you.
When the schemes of doubt, the sudden financial crisis, the toxic coworker, the unexpected failure that threatens to delay your purpose start coming at you, the spiritual armor allows you to absorb those massive impacts without losing your footing.
But it requires daily practice.
You wake up, and before you look at your phone, before you check the news, before you let the demands and panics of the world rush into your mind, you mentally and spiritually equip yourself.
You remind yourself of the truth, of your standing, of the readiness that comes from a grounded faith.
This active, deliberate defense is what allows the inner warrior to operate in hostile territory without being silenced.
And when you are standing there, when you are fully armored, possessing a sound mind, and choosing to act courageously even when you feel terrified, Moore says you need one final piece to cement your resolve.
You need the ultimate confidence booster.
You need a massive perspective shift to keep you from shrinking back.
And he gives us that with Romans chapter 8, verse 31.
What then shall we say in response to these things? If God is for us, who can be against us?
Just let the sheer weight of that verse sink in for a second. If God is for us, who can be against us?
This specific scripture is designed to dramatically alter the scale of our perceived obstacles.
When we are hiding in the winepress, whatever our modern Midianites are, they look like giants.
Our lack of resources, the people criticizing us, the systemic barriers in our way, they appear completely insurmountable to our limited human perception.
But Moore points out that Romans chapter 8, verse 31 forces us to view opposition through a cosmic lens.
It asks a rhetorical question that demands a total shift in perspective.
Right, and it's crucial to note what the verse doesn't say.
It doesn't say you won't face opposition.
It doesn't say people won't be actively against you or that life won't be incredibly hard.
It says that in comparison to the creator of the universe being for you, any opposition is mathematically and spiritually irrelevant.
It's like putting a drop of water next to the ocean.
How does your fear shrink when viewed through the lens of this specific scripture?
It shrinks to nothing.
The doubt that felt like a roaring lion in the middle of the night is suddenly revealed to be nothing more than a shadow puppet.
What Moore is challenging us to do here is to adopt this bedrock conviction.
The warrior mindset is built on the unshakable belief that the ultimate authority is backing your play.
Okay, let's take a deep breath and synthesize all of this because we have covered incredible heavy ground today.
We really have. We have looked at Moore's foundational theory, the assertion that doubt actively silences courage and hesitation delays your divine purpose.
We have done a deep dive into the historical precedent.
Gideon, in Judges chapter 6, verse 12, hiding in a dusty winepress, yet declared a mighty man of valor.
Proving that God sees our inner warrior before we ever do.
And that confidence is born from obedience, not the other way around.
And we have thoroughly unpacked the scriptural toolkit.
Fighting chaos with the sound mind, from 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7.
Embracing the command to act courageously, regardless of our feelings, from Joshua chapter 1, verse 9.
Actively putting on our daily spiritual defense from Ephesians chapter 6, verses 10 through 11.
And shifting our perspective to the cosmic scale with Romans chapter 8, verse 31.
So the ultimate question is, what do we do with all of this?
How do you, listening to this right now, synthesize these ancient texts and profound insights into determination and spiritual strength today?
How do we step forward and truly activate this framework?
Activating this mindset requires connecting all these disparate dots into a cohesive daily practice.
Silencing the inner voice of fear is not a one-time event where you read a book, feel inspired, and never struggle again.
No, it is the habitual, sometimes gritty application of the principles we've discussed.
It requires a fundamental neuroplastic change in how you react to doubt.
When doubt arises, and we must be clear, it absolutely will arise. Moore's text challenges you to recognize it not as a truth teller,
Not as a voice of reason keeping you safe.
but as a cognitive and spiritual obstacle to be bypassed. It is the friction trying to delay your purpose.
Stepping forward means you acknowledge the very real feeling of hesitation. You actively apply the discipline of a sound mind to reject its premise.
And you choose the behavior of courage, knowing you are fully armored and backed by the divine.
What really struck me reading Moore's conclusion is this realization that we don't need to endlessly prepare.
You don't need to read 10 more books, or attend 5 more seminars, or wait for the perfect alignment of the stars to finally acquire the capacity to start.
Moore argues the capacity is already there. It is installed.
For anyone listening who feels stuck, that's an incredibly liberating perspective to pull from this text.
Whatever calling is sitting dormant inside you, that business idea, that ministry, that book you've been outlining for years, that leadership role, or even that difficult conversation that will bring healing to your family.
It is time to stop delaying your purpose.
You just need the faith to turn the key in the ignition.
You need to accept the identity that was spoken over you before you ever felt brave.
And we should consider the broader systemic implications of Moore's framework.
What happens when it's not just one individual reading this text, but an entire community of believers who decide to adopt this methodology?
What happens when a collective group decides to set their doubts aside and operate with this activated warrior mindset?
Imagine the compounding positive effect. When one person steps confidently out of their winepress and into their calling, it creates a slipstream.
It provides a tangible example to everyone around them that courage is possible, which in turn activates the dormant courage in others.
The hesitation of one person delays their own purpose, but the activated faith of one person can accelerate the purpose of many.
Families are transformed, Communities are uplifted, and massive systemic obstacles are overcome when people refuse to be silenced by the spirit of fear.
That is the exact vision, the exact slipstream I want to leave you with today.
We want to maintain this highly empowering, confident tone as we wrap up because you need to hear the core message: more is broadcasting.
Whatever hiding place you are currently in, whatever your personal, dusty wine press looks like right now, the text argues that you are fully equipped to emerge from it today.
You have access to the armor. You have the capacity for a sound mind. You have the command to be courageous.
The core message Moore wants to leave you with is that your inner warrior isn't a myth.
He makes the case that it is your truest self, waiting for you to simply believe the decree that has already been spoken over you.
It is a profound realization that, according to this text, the only thing standing between the ordinary life we settle for and the extraordinary life we are called to is the willingness to execute that command of faith.
So let's do a quick, concise recap of this incredible journey we've taken through the source material.
We started with Elder William Moore's powerful, arresting quote 14. Embrace your inner warrior and set your doubts aside.
We explored the psychology and theology of how doubt acts as an active silencer, using hesitation to delay your God-given purpose.
We traveled back to Judges chapter 6, verse 12, looking at the geopolitical reality of Gideon, the ultimate reluctant warrior.
Hiding from the Midianites in a winepress, yet called a mighty man of valor, proving that we must choose courage before confidence arrives.
And we unpacked the ultimate equipping scriptures, fighting cognitive overload with the sound mind of 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7.
Embracing the command to take courageous action in Joshua chapter 1, verse 9.
Deliberately putting on our daily spiritual defense from Ephesians chapter 6, verses 10 through 11.
And resting in the unstoppable cosmic assurance of Romans chapter 8, verse 31, knowing that if God is for us, nothing can successfully stand against us.
And as we conclude, I want to leave you with a final lingering question to mull over, something to take with you into your day that builds upon everything we have uncovered in Moore's text.
We've talked extensively about the concept that God calls you a mighty warrior even before you feel like one.
And we've explored the tools required to maintain that identity in the face of fear.
So I want you to imagine tomorrow morning.
If you were to look at your life through that exact lens the moment you wake up.
If you truly deeply believed, without a shadow of a doubt, that your inner warrior was fully awake, fully armored, and pre-authorized for victory.
What is the very first doubt you would completely dismantle, and how would taking that one single action change the entire trajectory of your calling?
Wow, what an incredible, challenging question to chew on. Identify that one doubt and dismantle it.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into Elder William Moore's phenomenal work.
It has been an absolute privilege to unpack these ancient truths and practical insights with you. Until next time, keep your armor on, keep that mind sound, and step out of the winepress.
Your calling is waiting. Take care.
Thank you for joining us today on From Manuscript to Ministry. If today's featured book encouraged, challenged, or inspired you, we invite you to take the next step, purchase a copy, and support the author behind the message. When you invest in their work, you're not just buying a book, you're sowing into good ground and helping advance the kingdom of God through faith-filled storytelling. Don't forget to subscribe, follow, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who needs it. Your support helps these powerful voices reach even further. Until next time, keep reading, keep writing, keep praying, and keep walking boldly in your calling. God is still turning manuscripts into ministries.